Welcome everyone to today's session and our special online event, How to Break into China and Drive Brand Growth Like a Pro. Today you'll hear from Yannick from the AdChina.io team, and is going to cover a wealth of information on everything from China's growth and strength of the market, how to enter China, of course, and how to do the necessary research and the business actions to test the market and get started the smart way. Now, I say this every webinar, but I'm going to say it again. It is important that you take notes, because there's no use attending webinars or training courses or whatever it might be and having that information passively flow through and doing nothing with it. Whereas if you take some notes, then you'll have clear action steps and priorities that you can use to determine a path to go forward. So at the end, we'll do a Q&A, as we always do. So please ask your questions now or whenever they come up, and we'll go ahead and answer as many of those as possible. So there is nothing too specific, so ask away about your particular industry, your vertical, anything and everything China market related, especially around the advertising and the selling into China. So before we dive in, I just wanted to briefly introduce today's speakers. Today we're joined by Yuman from the AdChina.io team, and Yuman has a major focus in the team on data analytics and looking into marketing campaigns, identifying the leverage points, and really just diving into the data. So Yuman will handle the Q&A session at the end. I'm Brad, I work for AdChina.io as well, and I put together a lot of our educational material and content. You might have seen me in videos in the past. And yeah, I just really love and enjoy the world of China's marketing and advertising space. So I handle a lot of our communications on those topics. And presenting today is, of course, Yannick. So Yannick's been with AdChina.io since it started, or very close to it, in 2018, has clients across a range of industries. And so when I say feel free to get specific, I really do mean that. So Yannick's experience in both sales and marketing, he's got a wealth of it, so I highly recommend throwing any and all questions you have his way. Now, just to explain who we are and what we do at AdChina.io, we are the sister company to Go Digital China, and we help organizations, brands, and businesses to get set up and start advertising in China. And to be clear, we are first and foremost a tool, a platform that lets you go in and run ad campaigns in English on China's top ad channels. Now, we offer a range of support services in terms of translation, strategy, all that good stuff, but you can also use it on a completely DIY basis as well. So if you're already working with an agency, for example, that's fine, keep them. But we can help you to run those ads and campaigns into the China market. And you can see all the data in an open, reliable, transparent way, because it's not being filtered through somebody else's dashboards. It's all coming direct from the channels. Now, with that said, I'd love to introduce Yannick to kick things off and talk about entering the China market. Take it away. Thanks, Yannick.
Thanks very much, Brad. And yes, I am Yannick, and I've been working for Go Digital China first, and then also now for AdChina.io when we launched that product. So we'll go a bit into that as we go along. So firstly, yes, as Brad said, we are Go Digital China, and then our platform tool is AdChina.io. About me, I've worked for Go Digital China since mid-2018. And shortly thereafter, we launched the AdChina.io platform. And the main industries that I've helped clients in is in the education, retail, fast-moving consumer goods, tourism, and B2B services, real estate, and supplements, and a lot of other different industries. So if there's specific industry questions, go ahead and ask them, and I'll do my best to answer them. And what we mainly do is that we help international products and services really into the Chinese market and really advise them on how to enter the Chinese market, but also then on how to manage their brand through digital advertising in China. And my own background is primarily in marketing, sales, and then entrepreneurship, a bit around the world. So that is who I am, and hopefully you'll have a good experience in the next 40-ish minutes with me. starting out why we're doing what we do, we really believe that it is important to connect every country in the world. We feel that that is going to enrich everyone's life by making it easier to do business between countries. Therefore, we are focusing on enabling Western companies into the Chinese market, which there has been a lot of barriers in the past. So that is what we're doing through digital advertisement primarily. And what we really believe in is that trading between all the countries will help the people living in these countries. And then we mainly believe in that transparency is really efficiency. So by allowing you to have full understanding of what is happening for your brand in the Chinese market, you will then have efficiency in understanding how consumers are using your product and also what needs to be done in the future, even if it's with us or if you're taking over things and running it themselves. And then lastly, we really take a data-based marketing approach or market entry approach, meaning that we always try to look at real data, be it surveys in China, be it running digital advertising for your product before you're ready to launch it in China, just to see the response. We'll get into some of these details in a bit later, but we try to always make it based around real data and not just what we feel might be right. That is why we're also trying to always tailor make all the proposals we're doing to our customers and really tailor make your approach into the Chinese market. A little bit about why we think that the digital space of China is so important. In terms of the numbers, there is more than 1 billion Tencent active users every day. ByteDance now have 700 million active users on a daily basis, and there's more than 200 million active users on the primarily e-commerce platforms such as Taobao and Tmall. So as you can see, it's really digital. Almost everyone in China is online every day, and that's why we think this is the best way to reach out to the audience in China. And again, a little bit on China, 12% of all outbound tourism are gonna be Chinese again when we open up and start having more traveling. And then specifically about why China now, we've seen that China is one of the only countries or major economies that are actually having growth in 2020, but also expecting to have quite a high growth in 2021, as you can see, with almost 8%. And again, it's been ranked as the most attractive market for multiple years running in a row. And when we look into how the growth has been, as you can see, the quarter of 2020 was hit pretty hard when they had the first lockdown in China, and it was a really strict lockdown, but it was a shorter duration than what we have seen in the rest of the world. That meant that they eliminated most of the COVID virus early on, and therefore things went back to a bit more normal again. And that is why now is a good time to really enter the Chinese market. It's one of the few markets where people are actively spending, where daily life is back to relatively normal. And that also means that when we look into how people have been spending money in China, these are all in billion RMB, and where you can see the different industries. So feel free to look up where your industry is and then have an understanding of how much people are using on it. Of course, the holidays have mainly been within China the last year, but there is definitely going to be a big surge in overseas traveling again as soon as the borders are opening up and the Chinese consumers feel that it's going to be safe to travel abroad again, which we're presuming is probably going to happen the end of this year or maybe early next year when more countries have fully vaccinated and the virus is on the way down. And one thing that we have seen on the up, it has been especially in the entertainment and lifestyle industry in China. But you can feel free to reach out to us and hear specifically about your industry in the future. And just about the companies that we've helped, as you can see, we have quite a few companies that we have been helping in a lot of different industries, but also the things we've helped with is a lot of different things within the digital advertising space. On top of this, we have done a lot of market research and audience research for the different brands and companies we're working with to make sure that there's a good fit before they enter the Chinese market. One thing that we should mention is always the challenge of really running advertising or digital marketing in China. Of course, the culture is always something that people will know of to begin with, and the language. It is not an easy language to learn, and it's very different from what we're used to. But at the same time, it doesn't have to be as hard as people think. We have a team that is bilingual, so you can always write us in English, and then we can help you translate and transcreate it into being appropriate for the Chinese language, but also the culture. Then the second thing is that there is a lot of inconsistency and heavy regulations from a Western standpoint, at least, where things can change quite rapidly in the Chinese market, and this can be seen both as an advantage and a disadvantage depending on how you look at it. You might be able to enter the market really quickly with a product when China open up, then you can be ready for it, or it can be an issue that you cannot do anything currently in China, and then we will have to look into maybe preparing you for when it opens up. And the second aspect is what we've really been working on, and why we created the AdChina.io platform, is the lack of transparency into when you're working with an agency in China, and also the issues that have been with fraud, especially in the data that you're getting from the marketing reports and in terms of clicks and real purchases. This is something we are eliminating with the AdChina.io. So all the data that you're seeing comes directly from the media channels in China, be it ByteDance, Tencent, Baidu. Second aspect is that there used to be a really high starting cost for running digital campaigns in China, where it used to be around 10 plus thousand US dollars just to run a campaign. That is now eliminated, especially through our platform. So you can start much lower. Normally, we say a good starting point should be somewhere around 1,000 plus US on a monthly base. And depending on what you're doing, it might actually be a little bit higher to get good traffic and understanding of what is happening. But the minimum starting point is now lowered down to just around 1,000 US. And one of the other aspects is that due to the way China is built up, there's a lot of big players. So there is the Alibaba, there is the Baidu, there is the Tencent, there is the ByteDance, which are the big companies, and they don't really share data with each other. Here in the West, we're used to seeing Facebook and Google really sharing data easily between each other, but in China that does not happen. So that makes it a lot harder for you to understand how the different channels are performing, and that is one of the advantages of using our platform, is that you can see the data from the different channels and compare it directly. This is something before you would have to go into every single channel and look, and then pull it all out into one data sheet and then look at it together there. And now you can do it much quicker. It's simply picking the right channel, and then you get the data from that channel. And then, of course, lastly, is that you're not used to using all the media that you're used to. So no Facebook, no Google, so you don't know the challenges there, and that's why we come in and help by giving you access to the premium Chinese media channels. And now a little bit about how to enter the China market, and really this is hopefully where your story will start. What we generally do is that we have a small step-by-step approach into it. So the first aspect is, of course, doing a market research to understand the market for your industry, what it looks like in terms of the different aspects. We will see, I'll go a bit more in detail on what we'll be doing in these market research, and same with the audience research. And then one thing that is very important is that you register your trademark in the right category. This is not something we do personally, but we have partners that help us with this. So if you have any questions around that, normally I would be happy to refer you to a partner on setting up the trademarks in the Chinese space. And it's important that you do this early on, when you know that you want to enter the Chinese market, as trademarks in China are generally accepted in terms of the date. So the earlier you do it, if someone else has an application in for the same name and everything before you, then they will generally be approved, even if you are a well-known brand outside of China. The next aspect is to do our smaller market testing. We'll get into details on what that encourage and what you really can do there. But generally, we prefer to test a little bit before we start going full scale in terms of digital market presence, such as setting up social media channels and everything. Before that, we normally run a small test to see what the consumers are saying to your brand. And of course, the next step will then be making it even easier for your customers to really buy the services or products that you wanting them to buy. So that could be through online travel agencies if you are a tourist destination. It could be through e-commerce platforms if you are selling retail goods, or it could be enabling you through Chinese website and having a store there to make it very easy for them. Or there's a lot of different ways that you can make it even easier. It could be general trade and import into the Chinese market, so you can have it out in retail stores in China. And then lastly, it's starting to really help build your brand even further and increasing the sales in the Chinese market. And then hopefully in the end, you'll have a good profit and really continue growing in the Chinese market. So now I'll go a bit more into some of the steps mentioned here. One of the first one we do is normally doing our market research. So we'll look into the market size for your industry, a little bit on the competitors, who they are, where the brand positioning is, are they foreign, are they local, and what are their main USPs. So you have an understanding of what there is in the market and what's happening. And then we look into the distribution channels. Where is the product service sold? How are people really buying that kind of services? And what has to be said is that we can tailor this a bit into the information that you need. And clearly there's a big difference if you are B2B brand or if you are B2C seller, and also the products you're selling, then we need to make sure that the market research fits your needs and the information you need. And the main reason that we really want to do this is to help you understand the potential there is in the Chinese market, and then get a feel for where people are positioned. So is this a niche market where everyone is positioned into specific categories or specific product qualities, or where is it that you can kind of find a little bit of a blue ocean for what you're doing, and where do you fit into the overall brand position that is happening in the market? And then it's a little bit interesting to learn about where people are buying things for you, so you can understand what the next steps are going to be later on when you need to set up easier ways to really do trading into China. But normally, to begin with, those are not always needed. But that is something you can reach out to us, and then we can be happy to have a conversation about how you can get started in the Chinese market with this. The next aspect is normally looking into the audience. What kind of audience is there? Where are they located in China? And what are the age and demographics of the audience that you're trying to reach out to? And then what are the trending messages and key messaging that would appeal to that target audience? And then again, we will tailor it into what information you're looking for, and also what you already have of information beforehand, to make sure that we are providing you the full picture of what you're needing to enter the Chinese market. And as always, it's super important to understand your audience in China. A lot of times we see customers having a wrong idea of who the audience might be in China based on what they see in the West. They're just assuming it's going to be very similar, and sometimes that is not the case. I'll go a bit into it later on in one of our cases that we will share with. But what I can say now is that in the West, they are having a much older demographics, or versus in China, where they're having a much younger target audience. And this is something that is hard to really understand without having done some research into why people are buying things and what motivates them, and how you can really ensure that your brand is positioned the right way. Then the next step, what we normally do is that we kind of do a market or product testing. So we will help create what is a suitable marketing channel test by digital channels in China. So what it can be is that we run smaller digital campaigns for your product services and see what people are responding. Do people even click on it? What do people respond when they see the product and the landing pages? We can even measure, we can even do something as easy as, if you have a clothing product, then we do it in multiple colors and see what kind of colors are the market more interested in. So you don't need to stock later on, so you know which kind of stock you need to have in the Chinese market. Generally, what we'll do, if you already have a sales point or e-commerce store that is outside of China, what we can do is we can lead traffic there. What would happen is that there would be a landing page in between that's in Chinese, and then they'll be led to your web shop or your website with more information in English generally. And this is mainly just to see, are people really willing to buy your product? We can carry out surveys, but sometimes there's a big difference in what people behave when they actually has to pay for the product versus when it's just imaginary purchase. And this really is the easiest way and best way to test if your product really fits the Chinese market, and also how well it likely is going to be performing, and give you some good indication also on how long it's going to take to really enter the Chinese market for your product and build the brand awareness in China. So the next step that we really do is that we help ensure that there is enough visibility for your brand when you are saying that, okay, we know that there is a good potential here. We saw that from our market test. Then we would most likely already have analyzed the target audience, but if we haven't, then we'll do it again. We'll do it now. So we can make sure that we will find a suitable media channel to where you need to be visible to your audience. And then it's setting up and creating the content plan to ensure engagement with your audience. And then we'll start doing the posting and really do the engagement on the comments and take the feedback that is happening and then evaluate how that is happening. And then it's going back to the beginning in terms of, was it the right audience? Now we have even more data. And then evaluate and keep continuing in building your brand and visibilities in the Chinese market. This leads into a little bit of a market entry strategy. As you can see, it's setting up a sales point, it's setting up official communication channels or advertising accounts. So this is the first goal, and finding the right channels is something we will help you with. And also, depending on what your goals is, then they might be different in terms of what kind of sales point you are needing in the Chinese market. And then again, we'll be using smaller budgets in the beginning to further test out how all the different operations is running in the different channels that you're having. And then it's going to be continued learning, where you'd get more learning on what is the right message for your audience and how your advertising is performing. And you will take these key learnings into continue operating your own brand, even developing products maybe for the Chinese market in the future to fit the needs that is there. And as you can see, when we get to this point, it takes a good amount of time to really get everything up and running. So we're looking at, normally we say a good period would be around 3 to 6 months to get everything up and running and being right. It takes around a month just to get things set up, and might take longer if you don't have some of the prerequisites, such as a business license in China if you're trying to set up a general trading business in China. So it might take a bit longer depending on where you are now and what you're trying to achieve in the Chinese market. But this is a good idea of general structure to follow. That leads into a little bit on how we do marketing. And what we really do is that we try to strategize in the beginning and create a clear campaign plan. And then it's about testing it, making sure that it is always very precise, the test we're doing in terms of the audience. So we make a lot of small campaigns to ensure that so we can see the difference between the different audiences, even the minor differences in the audience, so we can figure out what is the right place and audience for you to message for you. And then you get it all back in our at china.io, where you can see it all in English, so you have transparency in how everything is running. You can see the campaign names and the audience that they're targeting. And then we normally have either a bi-weekly or monthly meeting to share insights on how everything is running and what we think that we can do to further improve and optimize your campaigns, and how we can go back and redo the plannings to make sure that we're always targeting the right audience. And that is the continued loop that we'll always try to keep optimizing and trying to improve things, testing out new things, do A/B testing for your advertisement, testing out new messages for the audience to make sure everything is running smoothly. And that leads a little bit into some of the customer stories that we have had in the Chinese market and how we have helped them So one of the first brands that we are currently helping or have helped is called Skansa. As you can see, they have a lot of different smaller brands below them, and we have been helping them with one specifically. In terms of, we did our market research, we did an audit. They had already been in China before, but they had not succeeded. So we did an audit of what they've done in the past and how we could find improvements, and then we made a new go-to-market plan, kind of relaunched the whole brand into China. And then we created the marketing strategy for them. And then ever since then, we have been handling and managing all the advertising they're doing in the Chinese market. And now it is smooth going, and it's growing the brand, and every trend is in the positive way. So they are starting to be profitable in the near future. We have only been working with them since 2019. Another customer is called Mills. It's a local Norwegian brand, and it's a household brand in Norway. And here, what we did, we helped them again do a little bit of research into the market. Then we helped them set up our e-commerce store as a sales point and promoting their products that they are now having up on Tmall, and really help them establish their social media and visibility, brand visibility in China. And that way, we are slowly now starting to see the results of what we're doing. But it has taken a little bit longer, I have to say, with this kind of brand, because it was a product that is not traditional to the Chinese consumers. So there is a little bit longer period of time where we need to educate the Chinese market on how to use the product and the benefits of their product. But now that we see more and more people understanding it, we are seeing a very positive trend in terms of sales numbers on the rise, and also on really being able to see more and more people adopting the product. But yeah, sometimes it can take a little bit longer if your brand is a completely new concept that is not well known in the Chinese market. And lastly, we have a health supplement that we have been helping for a longer period of time. Again, this is a brand that had an e-commerce store in China when they started working with us, but they had issues with it not delivering in what they wanted to do, and also they didn't have any insight into what was really happening in the Chinese market with their current distributor. So what we did was that we helped them solve some of the logistic issues that they were having, enabled them to understand what is happening for their brand in China, worked with a lot of KOLs to further boost the brand visibilities in all the different platforms in China and the social media. And then we have been running advertisement for them ever since, and to drive more traffic into their Tmall and JD and also Taobao stores now. So it's a little bit different how the different brands enter the Chinese market and where the starting point is. But what we've seen a lot of time is that what happens is people enter the Chinese market without having a full understanding of what their industry is like and what the key audience will be. Such as what I said earlier with Medox, they are primarily targeting people that are 50 plus here in Scandinavia. In China, their target audience is much younger. We're talking about 25 to 45. And it's mainly females for now, where here in Scandinavia, it's both male and female that are using the product. So it's very different in terms of the targeting and the messaging that they're needing to put out for their brand in China. And they had tried out just using what they had, the same audience that did in the West. And clearly that was not the right audience to reach out to. They were not willing to adapt a completely new product where they don't understand the benefits of it in the same way as people would do here in Scandinavia, where it's much easier to sell because people have a good understanding of what the product does and the qualities that is in the product. So yeah, depending on where starting point is, it's going to be very different what needs to happen to really improve your market presence in China. But do feel free to reach out to us and talk about how we can help you optimize your market, or how we can help you really enter or even re-enter the Chinese market. And lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about our AdChannel.io platform, which is something that we're using with all our customers to really give them full transparency into what we're doing when it comes to advertising in China. So the way that is that it's a X-channel advertising platform, all in English. For now, we have 10 plus channels where you can directly buy advertisement in. And it's one place where you can really easily test the different channels and see the performance towards the different channels, and you get the insights in real time, and all the data is pulled directly from the Chinese media channel. We do not interfere with the data at all. So you can see what it costs, the spending you're spending there, and everything. And hopefully you can make it even easier for you to do the reporting. You can pull it all out if you wanted to export it, but it's all in a reporting system that makes it very easy to compare the different channels and the different campaigns. So the channels that we're in are these ones. I will not go in detail of all of that, but as you can see, it is mainly channels that are owned by Tencent, Baidu, and ByteDance, and then LinkedIn China if you're more of a B2B audience that you're reaching out to. And as you can see, there is a lot of users on most of these different channels. So there is almost always opportunity to reach the audience that you're looking for. If it's an older audience, if it's an audience that is having a certain level of education, or if it's people living in certain parts of China, we'll certainly be able to reach them in the best possible way. And the way it really works, the AdChannel.io, is that you pick a channel, then you pick the audience, then you are creating your own advertising, and then you're simply setting up a budget and a schedule, and then it will be up and running. Generally, it takes 1 working day to get all the advertisements approved. Due to the regulations in China, things has to be approved, and then you get real-time data report back. And again, how we work is that it's always about setting out clear goals to begin with and what we're going to do, and then testing that, and then reporting back and continuing to optimize it in a continuous loop. And on top of that, we do provide a lot of other marketing solutions. So strategic consultant, we can help you with website building, social media management, creative content if that is needed, any display or feed advertisement, and then of course influencer marketing in China. Just a little bit on who we are, just so you feel you have a good idea. The company has been around since 2015, created by 3 guys, Jay Zhang, Wolf Erik Spieling, and Stein Egmo, and they're all former executives in Huawei, Telenor, and Accenture. And the idea was to take international product and service into the Chinese market via e-commerce and digital marketing. Our corporate headquarters is here in Oslo, Norway, but then we have an operations and technological headquarters in Shanghai, China, where most of the operations happen and management on a day-to-day basis. And all our employees are at least bilingual, so they all speak English and Chinese if they are in Shanghai, and if they are in Oslo, then they most likely will speak English and a few other languages at the same time. So as you can see, our team is a bit spread out. We have a team in China, we have a team in Australia, we have a team in India and Pakistan, and then we have the headquarters here in Oslo, Norway. So that is how we are right now. And that is kind of all for now. So now it's time for a few questions, if there is any. I can see there's quite a bit. So we'll get to those questions now. And Yinman will be the one presenting the different questions. So just give her a second and she'll be here.
Hi, Yannick. Thank you for this very informative session, and thank you for all the questions from the audience. We got a lot of questions. Hopefully we can go through all of those together in the session, but if we are not, we will answer you in email instead. So the first one is from Amy. What can I do to streamline the channel setup process and start running ads as fast as possible? This is the first question from Amy. Thank you.
Yeah, the easiest way to kind of streamline things is to reach out to us and then have all the documents that is required ready. So what we're talking about is, on general, it's a business license, a copy of your legal representative's photo ID, and then there's going to be a few documents that needs to be signed. And then when that is happening, then we will take care of the rest of it. So it's going to be, from your side, hopefully you'll feel that it's a lot easier and streamlined, that it will handle all the communication with the Chinese media channel. So all you really need to worry about is giving us over the right documents, and then we'll take care of the rest of it, and then you'll be up and running generally within a month's time.
Yes. And the second question is a person from Australia. He said, I'm running a large-scale tutoring company, doing a little advertising in China, but not getting great results. I think our ads are not strategic enough. Is there something that you can help with us?
Certainly. We have done a lot of this before, but one of the first things we probably would need to do is look a little bit into the activities that happened in the past and understanding the advertisement that you've been running, and also the kind of target audience that you're trying to reach out to, and see if there is a real fit between both the audience and the messaging that you're doing, but also if that is the right audience for your brand and your touring in Australia. But yeah, we have a lot of experience with that, so I'd suggest reaching out to us afterwards, and then we can have a talk about how we can best help you move forward and check where the issue is and how we can best optimize and get you good results.
Thanks. And another question is, do you think it's best that we just stick to one channel or use more than one channel when running the testing?
Generally, what we say, if it's for testing, is that we'll try to limit it a bit to one or two channels, just to keep the cost down, to make sure that we are getting you good enough data on those channels. But the best possible way, of course, would be, if there is a budget that allows for it, is to test all the different channels. But a lot of times we understand that people want to limit the cost and towards this, so it's best to just, I would say, one or two channels is enough to get a good idea of the product market fit in the Chinese market. So that is all that is needed. Of course, more is always better, but yeah.
Okay, and the next one is, in your experience, are trademarks and IP respected in China, or is it like the Wild West?
It certainly used to be a little bit more of our Wild West. It's getting a lot better. There's been a lot more crackdown from the Chinese government in terms of it, and also all the different e-commerce sites are now having much more responsible in terms of reducing any fakes or any copies of trademarks. But that is why it is very important that you register your trademark before you start doing trading in China, because if you do not do that, then there is a possibility that a Chinese person will simply do the registration for your trademark, and then you'd have the issues of getting the trademark back from that person. It doesn't matter if you are a well-known brand outside of China, it's all depending on the timeline. So the quicker that you're doing it, the better it is.
And the next one is, how much does it cost to run initial testing on WeChat? And how do you think about WeChat for targeting real estate investors in Southeast Asia?
Specifically for real estate, especially overseas real estate, there is some regulations depending on the channel, and WeChat is one of the channels where it is limited. You could do a testing on Baidu. They allow for overseas real estate. So that is specifically on WeChat. But what we talk about budget, I would suggest a budget that is around $2,000 to test out the report and see what people are really doing and how people are reacting to your advertisement. And generally that would be run over 1 to 2 months, or even less if you needed it quicker, but it can be stretched a little bit to make sure that the results are more cost efficient.
Okay, The next question is from the fashion industry. We are selling high-end fashion wear and would like to jump into China this year. Can you tell us what is the first steps there?
Yes, the first test is definitely understanding what the market is like in China, what the competitors are, what your substitutes would be for your specific brand, how much sales volume is there of products that are similar to yours in both in category, but also in terms of price point and in terms of the kind of branding that you're wanting to have, to see is there going to be a lot of competition or is it going to be a little bit more of a blue ocean. After that, the next steps is clearly going to be to do a bit of testing. So it's either setting up a test where we would lead traffic directly into your website outside of China to begin with, just to understand if people are really interested in buying it. It might be that you're not going to be selling as much as if you had a store on Tmall, but it's going to be the best way to get a good indication of how much people or how interested people are in your product. And then after you've run that, then we would generally advise you to set up a store in China. And then we would help you set up that and find a partner to help you run the store. And then after that, it's simply trying to promote more and create more visibility around your brand and keep building the brand in the Chinese market.
Yeah. And another question is in the supplement industry. It's a company doing energy supplement with caffeine, and they want to know if this kind of supplement is legal in China and how it is we're doing in running advertising and the marketing kind of stuff.
Yeah, it certainly is legal to have a product that is having caffeine in it. It have to be said that Chinese consumers are a little bit more concerned about very high caffeine levels in the products. So it depends a little bit on where you are on that range, how well it's going to be accepted in the Chinese market from our earlier research specifically into energy drinks and stuff like that. But the easiest way is simply to test it out and see what the real response is from the Chinese consumers to your product. And likely it's going to be best to start out with some cross-border e-commerce where you're not having general trading in China, because it takes a lot longer to get your products fully approved, and there's going to be a lot of different labeling, and you need to create a new packaging to do general trading for it. But yeah, it's the easiest way would be to have a chat on this, do our market or product test into the Chinese market, and then really run with the information that you're getting from there, and then being able to scale upwards when you're getting the results that you're looking for.
Okay. And another question from Rachel. I'm working with a European personal care brand and wondering if it is now a good timing due to COVID for overseas retail brand to break into China now.
It is definitely, we see that it's a good time now for brands reaching into the Chinese market, but at the same time you have to be aware that there is also a lot of Chinese competitors, so it's not going to be freely that, okay, now you're an overseas product, your product is automatically going to sell in China. You have to understand that the products and the qualities of products in China from local brands are getting higher and higher also. So again, it's a little bit, I need to know a bit more about the brand to really help fully give the answer to this, but it's understanding that things will probably not run super easy to begin with unless you have a good strategy laid out from the beginning and understanding how you could reach the audience that you're looking for and what we can do there in terms of targeting. And then again, run small tests. There's nothing better than real consumers trying out to see your advertising products and everything there. So yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah. And another question is how it usually takes for doing the marketing research and the marketing testing.
Yeah, generally it takes from when we have agreed to do the marketing research, it takes approximately around like 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how comprehensive it has to be to do that. And then setting up for testing and everything generally takes a good month for you to get all the documents in place and send it over to us, and for us to register the advertising account in China for that to be available. So that takes around 1 month, and then afterwards the testing period would normally last around a month also for us to really get a good answer. So ideally, you're looking at something around 3 months from the beginning till the end of the whole process. But it can be speeded up if you are willing to say that you want to do the product test to begin with. Then we can start as soon as we're doing the market research. At the same time, we can help you set up the channels and everything and be ready and running. And then we're probably looking at approximately 2 months' time in total.
And the last question is from Nick. He's working in semiconductor industry, and they're already in China, but not yet doing digital advertising. They want to expand their market share in China and targeting the automotive producer in all sizes. And is there any recommended digital channels for this kind of B2B companies?
It certainly is, and it depends a little bit if they're already in the market and if they already have a good idea of who their target audience is going to be, then it's something that we can take. And if they have a list of the customers they're having, we can take that and find the right channel for them. What we see is for the B2B aspect of it, sometimes the WeChat channel is very good for it, but it depends very much on how much information you're already having, and also how easy we can kind of create a whitelist or even a lookalike audience for you in those channels. Otherwise, there is always the opportunities of using something as LinkedIn China, or even specific vertical forums and vertical channels that are specifically targeted towards your industry, to getting the best possible reach and getting to your audience.
Okay. Thank you, Yannick, for answering the questions, and also thank you for all the audience for these questions. And then we move on to Brot.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thanks everyone for joining. It's been great, and I hope you learned a lot from today's presentation and the Q&A as well. Hope you got your questions answered. Well, thank you, Yannick. Thank you, Yunman, and see you again next time. Bye for now.
Bye.